Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's Master Key English free open class. The Master Key English course is something that I offer every week, that I run every week, in which students have a chance to practice their spoken English every day. On different days they have different activities to do, and over the course of a few weeks their spoken English generally improves, and in some cases it improves very, very significantly. This type of free open class is just one part of the course, and these classes are free for everybody. Anybody can watch these classes that you are watching now. In these classes we go through IELTS questions, and you guys get to hear me answer different IELTS questions, and as you're listening to my answers you've got some tasks or some activities to do. So let's get started with today's class. So our first activity today is some IELTS Part 3 questions. So you're going to hear my answers to IELTS Part 3 questions. And here are the 3 questions. Why are so many people excited to buy the newest iPhone even though it is very similar to the one they already own? Question 2. How has technology changed the way we study? Question 3. Why are so many young people around the world starting to use old-fashioned mobile phones instead of smartphones? Okay, so those are the questions you're going to hear me answer. As you're listening, as I mentioned, you've got an activity to do. In this activity, you've got to listen carefully and find which points do I mention in my answers. So remember, this was our first question, the one about iPhones. In my answer, I mention 2 of these 3 points. I don't mention all these 3 points, I mention 2 of them. So you've got to listen and find which of these 3 points do I mention. I mention 2 of them, and there's one that I don't mention. So here are the 3 points that I potentially mentioned. Some people love technology brands in the same way some people love sports teams or sports brands. B. Each newly released phone has some major improvements. And C. Some people feel attached to brands such as Apple iPhone. Okay, so as I said, I don't mention all 3 of those points in my answer. I mention 2 of them. You've got to listen and find which 2 do I mention. I think that in most cases there are no practical reasons why people are excited about the release of a new iPhone. Years ago there used to be a fairly big difference between one version of an iPhone and the next one. So when a new one was released, it was kind of a big event that would be reported on by the news, and a lot of people would queue up outside the store. Now most people have kind of moved on from that time, but some people have identified themselves with Apple and with the iPhone itself, and they are fans of that product, so they look forward to the release of a new phone just like fans of a band might look forward to the release of a new album, or fans of a soccer team might look forward to signing a new big name player. Okay, so hopefully you were able to find those 2 points, but let's listen to the key part of that answer again and see if we can find those. If you didn't find them the first time, let's see if you can find them this second time. But some people have identified themselves with Apple and with the iPhone itself. And okay, so there was the first point, the first of these points that I mentioned. I said some people have identified themselves with the iPhone and with Apple, the brand Apple itself. So here is this point basically. So it's C. So one of these points that I mentioned was this one, C. Some people feel attached to their brands, to their favorite brands such as Apple iPhone. And let's see which of the, so I also mentioned either A or B. Let's see which one was it. They are fans of that product, so they look forward to the release of a new phone just like fans of a band might look forward to the release of a new album, or fans of a soccer team might look forward to signing a new big name player. Okay, so there I made the comparison between fans of technology brands and fans of sports teams and bands. So the other point that I mentioned was A. The point that I did not mention was B. I did not mention this point. Okay, let's look at the next question. So if we look back, the next question was, how has technology changed the way we study? So in my answer to this question, I make two of these 3 points. So did I say A, or did I mention A? It has given students new ways to absorb information. B, it has changed the way we learn languages. And C, it has made studying more enjoyable. So I mentioned two of these points, but not all three. So listen and try and find which two I mentioned.
Concentrate. Question 3. Technology has made it a lot easier for students to do research and to find information. Also, it has allowed students who were perhaps bored by books or bored by their teachers to learn in different ways, particularly through watching videos. In addition to that, it has made language learning way easier because we can look up the meaning of anything we don't understand, whether it's an individual word or a full sentence, and we have access to way more foreign language content, and we can also practice speaking much more easily with people from different countries.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to find which two of those points I mentioned, but if not, don't worry, you'll have another chance. So let's listen to the answer again.
Question 3. Technology has made it a lot easier for students to do research and to find information. Also, it has allowed students who were perhaps bored by books or bored by their teachers to learn in different ways, particularly through watching videos. In addition to that,
okay, so there is where I talk about absorbing information. So I said it has given students new ways to absorb information. I mentioned videos as an example, and I say that they don't just have to learn from listening to their teachers. So that's where I mentioned this point, A.
It has made language learning way easier because we can look up the meaning of anything we don't understand, whether it's an individual word or a full sentence, and we have access to way more foreign language content.
Okay, so there is a bunch of reasons why technology has made it easier or has changed the way we learn languages. So the 2 points I mentioned in this answer were A and B. I did not mention really that it has made studying more enjoyable. I didn't talk about that at all. Okay, so we've got one more here. The next question is, why are many young people around the world starting to use old-fashioned mobile phones instead of smartphones? Here are 3 possible points that I mentioned. So A, they can't afford smartphones. So in other words, they don't have enough money to buy smartphones. B, smartphones are affecting mental health. And C, they can focus better if they don't use smartphones. Sorry, that should be one word. Okay. So these are the 3 points that perhaps I mentioned. I definitely mentioned 2 of them, and I definitely did not mention one of them. Listen and try and hear the 2 points that I did mention.
Question 4. I think so-called dumb phones are becoming popular again because a lot of people, including a lot of young people, are realizing how stressed and unhappy their smartphones make them feel. They might, in some cases, realize that they have a kind of addiction to their smartphone, and in other cases, they might just want to concentrate on their work or their study or whatever kind of thing they want to concentrate on, and they might find that messages from their smartphones are distracting them constantly. Also, a lot of people are worried that if we remain this dependent on smartphones, we are going to be completely controlled by governments and big corporations who want to limit where we can go and decide what kinds of things that we consume. I think that in most...
Okay, so there was my answer. Were you able to find the 2 points that I mentioned? We're going to listen again to the key part of the answer, so you've got another chance.
Including a lot of young people, are realizing how stressed and unhappy their smartphones make them feel. They might, in some...
Okay, so there is the one where I talk about mental health. So I said young people are realizing how stressed and unhappy their smartphones are making them feel. So that has all to do with mental health. So the first point that I mentioned was B. Let's see what other of those 2 points did I mention.
Cases realize that they have a kind of addiction to their smartphone, and in other cases they might just want to concentrate on their work or their study or whatever kind of thing they want to concentrate on, and they might find that messages from their smartphones are distracting them constantly.
Okay, so there is where I talk about focus. I didn't use the word focus, but I used the word concentration a few times there. And so basically, another reason is that they want to be able to concentrate better, and they find that their smartphones are a distraction. So I didn't mention this point at all. I didn't talk about the price of smartphones or whether they can afford smartphones or not. Okay, so that was all for from our first activity. We're going to move on now and practice some IELTS Part 1 style questions in a moment. Okay, so here were our Part 1 questions, and these were all about chocolate. So pretty simple questions here actually. So question 1 was, do you like eating chocolate? Question 2, did you eat much chocolate when you were a child? Question 3, do you think chocolate is generally a good gift? So for these questions, your challenge is different. You've got to listen to the questions and find which expression I used. Which of these expressions did I use? In each case, I used 2 of the 3 options. So here, in the first question, I used 2 of these 3. So the 3 options are, I used to eat, it can actually be, and for the same reason. So those are your 3 options. Of those 3 expressions or 3 phrases, I used 2. You've got to listen carefully and try and find which 2 did I use.
Yeah, like most people, I love chocolate. So I liked chocolate as a child because it tastes really good. And I still like chocolate today for the same reason, but also because if you get chocolate that has enough cacao in it and not much sugar in it, it can actually be quite healthy. So I usually eat a little bit of chocolate most days after my dinner. Question 2.
Okay, so I hope you were able to find those 2. If not, don't worry, you'll get another chance now.
Yeah, like most people, I love chocolate. So I liked chocolate as a child because it tastes really good. And I still like chocolate today for the same reason, but also because...
Oh, okay, I almost missed one myself there. So there it was, for the same reason. For the same reason. Let's try and listen to that again.
Same reason, but also because for the same reason, but also because...
Okay, let's just listen from the start.
Yeah, like most people, I love chocolate. So I liked chocolate as a child because it tastes really good. And I still like chocolate today for the same reason, but also...
Okay, so that was pretty quick. If you were able to hear that perfectly, well done. You've got good listening. So I said, I also like chocolate today for the same reason. Okay, now let's keep listening and see if you can find the other of these 2 expressions that I mentioned, or that I used.
So because if you get chocolate that has enough cacao in it and not much sugar in it, it can actually be quite healthy. So
okay, there was the second one. So the other one I used was this one, B. It can actually be. It can actually be quite healthy. So in this answer, I used these 2 expressions. I did not use this one. Let's listen to the rest of the answer again.
I usually eat a little bit of chocolate most days after my dinner.
So there I said I usually eat, and I did not use the expression I used to eat. So the 2 that I used were B and C. Okay, our second question was, did you eat much chocolate when you were a child? Again, I used 2 of these 3 expressions. Most of children, way too much, and widely available. So listen carefully and try and find which 2 of those 3 expressions did I use.
Question 2. Yes, like most children in my country, I ate a huge amount of chocolate, way too much chocolate, especially because it was very poor quality chocolate that had a lot of sugar and a lot of other junk in it. I wish my parents had known a bit more about nutrition because they would have prevented me from eating so much chocolate. Unfortunately, the type of chocolate I ate as a child is the type of chocolate that is widely available around the world. In any supermarket or convenience store, you see lots and lots of this kind of chocolate. It's usually produced by Nestle or a similar company.
Okay, so let's listen again and let's see, if you didn't catch them the first time, let's see if you can find which of those two expressions I used.
Question 2. Yes, like most children in my country, I ate a...
Okay, so I'm going to stop there because this is the one that I did not use. I did not use this, most of children. I said, like most children in my country. Like most children in my country. This is a key point because a lot of Chinese speakers of English, when they want to say 大部分人 or 大部分孩子 or anything, they will say most of people or most of children, and that's not correct. That's not correct. So I said most children. I said most. I did not say of. I just said most children. So this is the answer basically. This is the one I did not use. Now let's listen on and let's see how I used these two expressions.
Huge amount of chocolate, way too much chocolate, especially...
Okay, so there's B. So I said a huge amount of chocolate, way too much chocolate. And way too much, it just means much too much or far too much.
Because it was very poor quality chocolate that had a lot of sugar and a lot of other junk in it. I wish my parents had known a bit more about nutrition because they would have prevented me from eating so much chocolate. Unfortunately, the type of chocolate I ate as a child is the type of chocolate that is widely available around the world in any...
Okay, so I said it's the type of chocolate that is widely available around the world. Something that's widely available, it just means that you can buy it in many, many different places. It's very easy to find, it's very easy to find a place to buy it. I mean, that's widely available. Okay, so let's go to our third question. So the third question was, do you think chocolate is generally a good gift? Again, in this answer I used two of these three expressions. Number one, readily available. Now, readily available is very similar to widely available. They're almost the same. It just means it's easy to buy. It's not difficult to find a place to buy it. The next one is a safe bet. So a safe bet is like it's kind of like a safe option. 稳妥的选择, something like that. So, and then C is if they like to. Okay, so I used two of these three. I did not use all three. Let's listen and see which two did I use.
Question 3. Yes, I do think chocolate is a good gift. It's convenient and it's readily available in lots of different places. And it's extremely popular. So if you don't really know what the person you're buying a gift for might like, chocolate is generally a safe bet. Also, it's popular with people of all ages. Children are always happy when they get chocolate. And while people may eat less chocolate when they get older, very few people actually completely stop eating chocolate if they like it.
Okay, so let's listen again, and I'll give you, so you've got another chance to find these two expressions.
Yes, I do think chocolate is a good gift. It's convenient and it's readily available in lots of different places.
Okay, so there is the first one, A. I said it's readily available in lots of different places.
And it's extremely popular. So if you don't really know what the person you're buying a gift for might like, chocolate is generally a safe bet.
Okay, and this is the second one I used. So I said, if you don't know what the person you're getting a gift for might like, chocolate is generally a safe bet. Chocolate is a safe bet. And so let's see, I used an expression similar to C here, but not the same.
With people of all ages. Children are always happy when they get chocolate. And while people may eat less chocolate when they get older, very few people actually completely stop eating chocolate if they like it.
So I said, if they like it. I did not say if they like to. So our answer here for the third question was A and B. Okay, finally, for today's class, we're going to listen to me answer a part 2 question. Alright, so here is our part 2 topic. So it was, describe a piece of technology that you own that you find difficult to use. Okay, so I was talking about a piece of technology in this answer. And in the answer, I talked about some different things. And I wonder if you guys if you guys already know how to say these things in English. So in my answer, I talk about the following things. What are these things called in English? We're going to look at 4 different things. Number 1 is this machine. So this is the type of machine that I talked about. So do you already know how to say this in English? If you don't know, don't worry. You'll hear it in my answer. You'll have another chance to find the word when you listen to my answer. So this machine, that's number 1. Number 2 is this kind of drink. What is this kind of drink? What is this kind of drink? So just to be more clear, just in case you think it's maybe like some kind of green tea or something. No, it's not green tea. In case you think it's juice. No, it's not really juice. It's another kind of drink. And it's the kind of drink where you put some fruit and some vegetables and maybe some health supplements and maybe some nuts in together. And you mix them all up in one of these machines. And then you make this kind of drink. So do you already know how to say this kind of drink in English? Number 3 is a kind of vegetable. So a lot of students won't know how to say this vegetable in English, but it's one of the words that I use in my answer. So yeah, I'll tell you in a moment, but perhaps some students already know how to say this vegetable in English. If you do, congratulations. You probably have a very wide vocabulary if you already know how to say this vegetable in English. And finally, this is a kind of health supplement that generally people who go to the gym often use, generally men more than women, but of course a lot of women use it as well. But it's a kind of health supplement. This thing, you buy it, you see it in big tubs in health food stores, maybe 1 kg or 2 kg or more of this kind of thing. So what is this thing? Do you already know how to say this thing in English? And if you don't worry, you can listen to me use this word or this expression as I give my answer. So now let's listen to my answer and try and find these words in my answer.
This week I just bought a blender that's really annoying and very difficult to use. So I like blenders, I like making smoothies. But an important aspect of a blender is that it should be able to blend hard vegetables and not just soft fruit. And this one is not good at blending hard vegetables. So it takes me a long time to make my smoothie. When I make a smoothie, I like to put in things like carrots and beetroots. And in order to put them in the smoothie, first of all, I've got to put on one kind of cutting tool onto the blender. And I've got to mess around with that for maybe 5 minutes before it cuts the carrots and beetroots up into small enough pieces so that I can put on the main cutting tool and use that to make a smoothie along with some fruit and some milk and protein powder and some other things. So it's very annoying. Making a smoothie should take like a couple of minutes, but this adds about 5 minutes of effort and annoyance onto the time it takes me to make my smoothie. So I think I'll just have to get a different one. I can't return this one because I've already used it. So it's an unfortunate situation. And I think the problem with it is that it's just not powerful enough. I did some research online after I discovered this problem, and I found that in order to cut through hard vegetables, blender should have about 1,000 watts of power. And this one just has 600 watts, so it's not really powerful enough to do the job that I needed to do. The problem with having a blender that just blends really soft things is that you end up with really sugary drinks because the only things you can put into it are fruit like bananas and mangoes and strawberries and those kinds of things. Whereas I prefer to have a mixture of vegetables and fruit and protein powder in my smoothies. The last time I used it was about an hour ago.
Okay, so that was my answer. As I said, I mentioned all of these 4 things in my answer. I also mentioned something that I'm not even sure if I was using the right word. So I said that the problem with the blender was that it doesn't cut through hard vegetables, and I have to use what I said was a special cutting tool. Now I don't know what these things are called, really. The things that are on the bottom of the blender and actually cut and mix up the ingredients. But I call them cutting tools. I'm not sure if that's the correct word or expression for these things, but that's the expression I could think of in the moment. So anyway, let's go on to our 4 pieces of vocabulary and what these things were called. So this was our first one, and this was the actual machine I was talking about in the answer. In English, this is called a blender. Okay. The second one was a type of drink. So the type of drink I was talking about is a smoothie or smoothies. So here we have two smoothies. All right. So a smoothie is kind of similar to, but different from a milkshake. A milkshake is generally just sweet, and it often has like maybe ice cream or something like that in it. Whereas a smoothie is often sweet, but not always. And a smoothie is like a mixture of vegetables and usually some fruit. Okay, and this type of vegetable is beetroot. Beetroot, it's called. So, special kind of vegetable, very healthy, probably something you should be eating every day, I would say. And finally, this kind of supplement is called protein powder. Protein powder. So yeah, it's a type of powder that has protein in it. Okay, so it's pretty. I'm sure any of you who have been learning English for a while and who go to the gym already knew that one, probably. And if you don't go to the gym, you probably don't know that one. Okay, so that is it for today's class. Those were my answers to the IELTS questions that we used this week in the Master Key course. If you want to take part in the Master Key course from next week or from the week after next week or whenever you want to, then it's open every week. We start a new course every week with a new theme every week. So all you have to do is follow my Weixin, which is Learn with John, and send us a message there, and you can start the course as soon as Monday.